Hello, good morning. Yeah, for video, I don't have a webcam. Would you like me to put in a webcam?
Testing one, two. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Am I audible?
Okay, can you just turn on your screen so that we can see that we have your video?
I don't have my web camera. However,
Okay,
if you
I can
would
see your
like me
test
to
screen.
add one,
Thanks. Are you going to be screen sharing from your side?
not my side. I am the technical assistant from Green Rain. The trainers will be here soon. Others will be joining very soon.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Uh, 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 uh. Hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Can everyone hear me? Yes? No? Yes, sorry. Okay, good. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first App Hub Google event in Africa. Great. Before going further, how many of you are not from South Africa? Who is flying from another country? Okay. Can I hear the countries? Where are you coming from? Zimbabwe. Zambia. Wow. Tanzania. Ivory Coast. Wow. Cameroon. Oh, wow. Okay. Good. Great. So welcome. I love this diversity. And who is coming here for the second or third time of the Africa Games Week? Okay, okay. A few of you. Okay. Good. So for me, it's the first time in South Africa, and it's the first time attending Africa Games Week. My name is Javier Castro. I'm leading one of the gaming teams in Google. I'm originally from Spain. I'm very sad for yesterday. We lost in the World Cup, but optimistic about the future. I live in Dublin. It's a very rainy city compared to the sunny days that I've seen in Cape Town. I've been in Google for the last 10 years, and I'm working with app and game developers for the last 6-7 years. So it's the first time that we are organizing an event for apps specifically here in Africa, and I love to see that Africa Games Week is trying to bring and build this community, which I think is needed if you really want to create a gaming ecosystem. So today we have a packed agenda. We're gonna steal 3 hours for your time, and we want to just cover a bunch of topics. After myself, we have Dasson, which is gonna be talking about ASO and how important is that to get more organics, to get better recognition from play on the store, and what are some of the best practices and recommendations to start doing. Then we will have Serif, who will be talking about AdMob, some monetization strategies, as well as HTML5 games. We're seeing some of our mobile gaming customers who are starting to think beyond mobile or beyond apps, right? We know majority of the gaming users are spending time on the apps, but now there's a trend that over 50% of those users are also playing cross-platform, right? So it's not only about apps, it's also about web, it's about PC, it's about console. So I think it's very interesting to see that trend. And then we will have Varis talking about Firebase and the first-party data. Why is that important? Why is it important to understand your data, and how is a better way to connect it across buy side, sell side? Then we will have partner spotlight with Carry First and Prevo Digital, which is one of the leading publishers in Africa. And Prevo Digital is a performance agency. And then we'll have like a networking break. And back to that, we have export opportunity. We will talk about which markets are giving us the biggest opportunity in terms of cost per acquisition, in terms of cost per monetization, and where growing in terms of adoption of new users, etc. And we'll have also like a YouTube update from Seth. Before we have the last partner spotlight with Malillo Games, with Ugo, the founder of Malillo Games, will come and join, and I will make sure to give some time to have Q&A for all of you in case you have any question, and then Francie will close the event. Right, so first, I like to explain you what does AppHub means, because probably you haven't heard about that. So AppHub is a Google internal initiative that came out to life 5-6 years ago. We wanted to just connect the dots. Google is a huge company already, and there's over 20 teams supporting gaming developers at any stage, right? We have identified 3. I think there are more, but it's like create, connect, and scale, right? Depending on which stage your company is, you will probably need help from our side and from a different team. So one of the goals of the AppHub team is just to connect different Google gaming teams and bring them together, right? And that's what we are doing today in this event. So we have a bunch of experts from the buy side, from the sell side, from Firebase, from cloud, from export opportunities, from YouTube, from many more teams. So that's a unique opportunity to try to tell you how can we support you any of those stages. So yeah, overall, I think this is the largest delegation that we have in Africa for a gaming and apps event. We are 6 teams here. I think we are 11 Googlers. I don't know if every Googler can just raise your hands for a second, just for everyone to see who you are. Great. So yeah, I think we are missing a few of them still, but they will come. And what I'm trying to tell you here is like, look, we are still a small delegation, but we can connect you with almost 180,000 Googlers globally. Maybe not with all of them, but we can do our best. So if you have any question and we can answer the question, we can put you in touch with the team that is able to support or to answer that question, right? So just make sure to approach us, talk to us. We come from a long way just to get to know you. And the most important thing is the networking opportunity. This is all for you. I was asking where are you coming from because I think Africa Games Week is trying to build this opportunity for you to connect, right? From different countries in Africa where probably you don't have this type of events, right? Specifically about gaming because it's not such a big industry. So let's try to just get the best from it. Talk to each other. I can tell you from other events, there's huge opportunities on partnerships, getting to know each other, publishing, developing, ideas, right? I think this Africa Games Week is a 3 days event, and I know there will be some parties later where people will be able to also get to know each other. So just take the opportunity to do that because, again, I think the success of this event and the success of the Africa Games Week is also up to all of us. So with that said, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to introduce to Dazon, which is going to give us some recommendations and some learnings about ASO. So please give her a round of applause. Over to you.
Oh, okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me today. Okay, All right, so today, like Javi said, my session will be about the App Store optimization and how to make your app grow and also to have more, by having more visibility on the App Store and of course Google Play Store. So a bit about me. My name is Dazon and I work as Global Business Strategy Consultant for apps at Google. And my core responsibility is to advise app developers on the operational and also the product side of the app. So before Google, I also do have experience working with global leading game developers to help them grow their app internationally. And also, I launched my own app 2 years ago in German App Store. Long story short, it did not become unicorn company, and I also did not become world's youngest billionaire. However, from all these experience, now I'm set up in a great position to help you excel your app, so maybe your app can be the unicorn that I was dreaming for. So for today's session, combining all my experiences, I have prepared 5 checklists for you to check out for your app to make sure that your app listing looks as much as compelling as possible. So there's a lot of definition on what App Store optimization actually is. And at Google, we tend to stick to this definition, which explains it as the continuous A/B testing on App Store assets and measuring the A/B test of the impact. So of course, our main goal here is to increase your visibility on the Play Store to make sure that you drive the organic growth and also leave a really great first impression for the users who comes through your app from our ads link as well. So here, the main goals, of course, the final goal would be to generate more downloads. All right, so why should you pay attention to App Store optimization? So there's 3 main reasons, which is first, it is the beginning of the journey for your app. So we all know that first impression really matters. So you want to make sure that your app listing looks super compelling, that you are meeting all the Play Store requirements to increase the visibility as much as you can. And also, from our case study with our one of our app clients, Rakuten, we did see about 25% install rate differences from continuous A/B testing on App Store optimization. So I think it's such a great way to optimize for your install rate continuously in a short term as well. Last reason would be because of the high actionability. So I think if there's any product team here, I think they can relate that in order to fix an app or in order to optimize the product itself, you do need to release the app update, which can be troublesome as it will come with crashes, bugs, and also ANRs. So ASO is such a great solution that you can achieve that continuous optimization without any risk of having those crashes. So we will look at the two main areas of ASO, which is first the app quality, and second the Play Store listing. So contrary to many people's beliefs, app quality is also part of the ASO as it has the direct impact on the visibility and ranking of your app on our store. All right, so here I did mention that I will share 5 tips for you. And the first tip that I'm going to share is to make sure to keep your Android Vitals super green. So why does it matter? The more green you have, the more exposure you will have on the Play Store. So let's say your app did exceed the threshold of having negative and orange signs on your account. That means that Play Store actually decreases your visibility on all devices for your specific app. So make sure that your product team is continuously optimizing for these 4 main components: ANR, crash rates, wake ups, and wake clocks on a weekly basis to make sure you have at least 50% green throughout your time frame. And next, also want to quickly emphasize the importance of the APK as well. So APK is, in general, the total app size of your game. So we can see that from our stats here that app users are very sensitive when it comes to total app size. So that means if your app size is bigger than the other, your main competitors, you have the risk of losing some potential, and also that you do have some potentially missing out some install rates for your app. So as you can see, the higher the APK is, the smaller the install rate gets. So once again, this is mainly due to the infrastructure of each market. So depending on the primary export market or even your domestic market, I think your team can definitely prioritize the APK optimization. All right, so we looked at the 2 main tips, and now let's move on to the third one. So from here, we will look at this part from the listing perspective. So this is where we take a look at your icon, video, description, and also the screenshots. All right, so as you can see on the slide, the stat comes from StoreMaven. And this basically shows you the average of expected impact you can expect from continuous AS App Store optimization. And you can see that we have also prioritized the elements based on the result as well. The highest impact comes from the graphics, which is the videos, icon, and also your screenshots. You can also see that description also plays a crucial role here, and you can and I will be talking more in regards to the formatting, so your description can also be visible to your users. All right, so here we do have the perfect example from Google Play Games. And you'll see that here on the middle slot right here, this is where you can showcase your video of app in action. So for instance, if you're, you can also make a YouTube video, and then you can feature it on that slot right there. And Play Store will actually autoplay this to the users browsing your listing on a full screen. So it's such a great way to expose your app and also highlight the main values of your app in action. And then you will also see some screenshots which can be used as the landscape and also the vertical formats to also highlight some important parts of your app. What we do actually suggest, especially for gaming clients, gaming app developers, is to use the landscape orientation. The main reason is you are able to engage more users, as users will be able to see more graphic. And it's such a great way to utilize different formats like connected screenshot, different size to emphasize the text. So again, there's a lot of different things that you can continuously optimize here. And I would advise you to frequently run optimization on screenshots in about 2 to 3 weeks time frame. And then we also have to take a look at the description right here. You will see that this is the default that you will see, but then you will also see that you're able to highlight some important parts like we did like right here for our app. And you can easily achieve this by changing the HTML format of your description from the console. So you can utilize different functions like bold or underline or sometimes even emoji to make sure that your description is compelling to the users. Lastly, I also want to show you how your listing might look when you do implement the preview video of your app. So we do have something called feature graphic visible on your listing, and that will be shown at the very top of your listing. So usually you will have a screenshot of preview video of your app in the middle part, and if you do put the video, your top part will be screenshot in the main frame of that specific preview video you implemented. So of course, the first 5 seconds impression to your users are very, very important. So don't miss out on this opportunity by making sure that by making sure to implement all of these functions. All right, so that was our main 5 tips for you to implement for next couple of quarters or even next couple of weeks. Just by setting all these tips in place, your app listing will have increased possibility, will have more possibility to increase the visibility in overall Play Store. And you are now one step closer to accelerating your app growth. I am excited and to possibly see your app featured and also pop up on my algorithm on the Play Store in the next couple of months. Right, so thank you for your time, and I will be passing on to Sheriff from AdMob.
Thank you so much, Dasum. Hi, everyone. Oh, I forgot the clicker. So. All right, there you go. Well, hi again, everyone. It's so nice being here in Cape Town. It's my first time, and I'm so happy to see each and every one of you here with us today. My name is Sharif. I'm a strategic partner manager in the Apps and Gaming Global Partnerships org at Google. And my job basically consists of helping developers make more money and grow their apps and gaming business to the next level. So just before we start, quick show of hands, do you use ad monetization, or do you monetize your app or game with ads? Okay, great. A few hands here, so hopefully after this presentation, I'll see more hands of future plans to monetize with ads. Great, so some of the reasons you might not already be monetizing your app with ads is because of some of the myths that we hear a lot in the industry. So as a partner manager, some of the questions or some of the myths that we hear are that, first of all, users hate ads. Now, this is a misconception that I try to bust every single day in my day-to-day job. And you'd actually be surprised that 73% of users actually accept the advertising model in apps and in games, because simply speaking, when it comes to free apps, users understand that the developer behind the app still needs some sort of revenue, so these ads are their way of basically paying it back to them. The second myth is that ads are hurtful to the user experience. Now, this myth is the only one of the 3 that has a small grain of truth to it. And that is because, obviously, the more you put ads, the more the user experience is going to be heard. That's why it's all about finding the sweet spot or the middle point between user experience and ad monetization. Hopefully, after today's session, you'll get a clear picture of what that looks like. And the last point that we also hear is that ads might not generate enough value for developers. Now, this is also very false, because ads are actually one of the most important revenue sources for apps and game developers in the whole industry. So let's take a quick look of what the ads ecosystem looks like. Now, this compiles of 3 main components. We have obviously the users that are going to download your app or your game. We have the developers, such as some of yourselves here, that actually build those apps and games. And last but not least, we have the advertisers, who really try to provide the ads to find the users that are playing your games. So it's really a self-fulfilling kind of prophecy. What we're going to focus on today is the developer side of things, and specifically with AdMob. So with that, I'm super happy to introduce you to the Google AdMob, which is our product that is made for you to basically monetize your app or your game. It basically it's comprised of two main features. The first one being the ad monetization platform, which basically enables you to really leverage the formats, leverage the tools, and leverage every single solution that we have all in one. And the second one is if you choose to go with another platform, you can leverage our ad demand network, which is obviously one of the largest in the world with more than 20 billion ads flowing. Our platform and our product is really, really top-notch in the whole industry and one of the top gaming and non-gaming solutions that developers go with. There's millions of applications that monetize daily with Google AdMob. But we also provide really high CPMs and, more importantly, very high-quality ads so that you really, since you really care about the user experience, you can really find a balance between making the most out of these ads that you're showing them, but also ensuring that they have a good time leveraging your app or your game. And last but not least, you're able to really leverage Google's automation system and allow us to handle all the heavy lifting in the back end while you really focus on the right things for your app and your game while still maintaining the full control of the process. So now we're going to take a quick look on what are some of the ad formats that are available when it comes to apps and games. We have the 4 traditional formats that are very widely available in the whole industry. The first one being banner ads that are basic rectangular ads that you might find at the bottom or at the top of any app or game that you play. The second one being interstitial ads that are basically full screen, full page ads that pop up at any point throughout the game or the app. Then we have rewarded ads. Rewarded ads basically enables users to receive a gift or a benefit for watching a 30-second video ad. And last but not least, you have native ads that are fully customizable ads that basically fit the look and feel of your app or your game. Now, at AdMob, we created 3 new formats that you can already start leveraging today. Those are exclusive to our platform, and you can really see the benefit when it comes to the user experience, but also the monetization. And I'll tell you how. The first one is with adaptive banners. Now, contrary to the regular traditional banner formats, adaptive banners really adapt to the different sizes of the devices that your users might be playing or using your app from. So it really ensures a beautifully integrated ad with great user experience and excellent monetization. The second one is rewarded interstitials that are actually a mix between the traditional rewarded and interstitial ads. The difference, however, is although the user is getting a gift or a reward after watching the full video, they are not actually choosing to opt into the format. Rather, you, as a developer, since you know best when they can leverage the reward, you're pushing it onto them. So there's no opt-in. And last but not least, the app open format. When users open your app or your game, they're actually waiting for the app to load. Now, these are missed monetization opportunities because you're able to monetize those impressions with the app open format. It's basically 85% of the screen that would be reserved for an ad and 15% with the logo of your app or your game and the name. So it's really a great way to start maximizing your revenue opportunities for the users that download your app. Now, to strengthen your monetization strategy, there's 3 main pillars that we're going to be focusing on today: bidding, reporting, and privacy. Let's take a look at bidding first. Bidding or regular traditional mediation waterfall is basically how you as a developer, whether app developer or game developer, can maximize your revenue opportunities by putting your ad space up for competition between different networks. So rather than just getting ads from a sole network such as Google, you can really open up your ad space and put it up for bids. Now, with the traditional mediation waterfall, you select what CPMs you want the advertisers to show you. When it comes to bidding, since the whole industry is moving towards real time, it's super simple. You basically select the ad networks, and the highest paying network with the highest CPM is going to show the ad. Super simple, very straightforward, and enables you to really maximize every single impression that you're getting. Now, with the AdMob platform, you have more than 200 networks available for you to integrate already from today. Whether you're thinking about bidding or regular traditional waterfall mediation, and both on our platform work hand in hand, so you can really get the best out of both worlds. Now, as Dassem mentioned, the size of your app is very important, and the bigger your app, the smaller the downloads might get. So that's why we also have a lot of networks that are available without any SDK integration directly from the AdMob network. And even beyond that, you have available the Google AdMob SDK that is light, so a smaller size, that is available for all developers that develop on the Play Store. Second, we'll look at reporting. With the AdMob reports, you can really go granular and deep dive into the data that is flowing from your users. And even beyond that, you can leverage all the reports and the graphics that are in the AdMob dashboard to visualize all those trends and make business decisions that are right for your users. What we've also integrated recently is impression lifetime value. This basically enables you to understand each user impression, what it's worth at the end of the day. So with the ILTV report, you can already see how much revenue is flowing from each impression that you are getting inside your app. And you can already integrate that either with Google Analytics that we'll take a look on with Barish later today, or some of the MMP platforms that you see here. Last but not least, privacy. Now, this is a buzzing term that you might be hearing a lot over and over and over again. But it's specifically important, not only for the developers, but also for the users that are really caring about a more private, more secure world. And with AdMob, this is exactly the place to do so. You can already ensure a great user experience by leveraging the Ad Review Center. In this center that is available in the AdMob dashboard, you can see all the ads that showed up in your app and quickly block any ad that you don't want to be there, or smoothly block an entire category, whether sensitive or general, to ensure that the users are seeing good quality ads that you want placed inside your app and that are basically a good fit for the audience that you are targeting. Now to recap, we discussed so many things today, starting with the exclusive formats, both the new ones, but also the traditional ones that are available on the AdMob platform. We also discussed mediation and bidding that enables you to put your ad space up for competition to more than 200 buyers on the AdMob platform. Then we took a look at how you can basically leverage the ads activity report and visualize and go deep dive into each and every impression that you get inside your app, followed by the latest privacy-preserving technology with our SDK and with our platform. If you're interested in starting to monetize your app, and I know a lot of you here don't already monetize their app or their game, you can quickly scan this QR code and get in touch with us so that we can help you get started. Now, super important thing, as Javi mentioned in the beginning, developers are looking for ways to diversify their revenue. And that is essentially because players are playing games on more platforms now than ever. With H5 games, I'll start by basically quickly introducing you to HTML5 if you're not familiar with the concept. HTML5 is a web-based platform that you can basically leverage to publish your game on the web. It's very smooth, very easy to implement, and it runs on any platform. So there's no underlying platform to support it. So that basically opens up an entire pool of users to your game. We at Google created the Ad Placement API to basically help you monetize H5 games. So it's the new Ad Placement API that I'm going to introduce to you just right now. There's basically two placements to it. First of all, interstitial ads that are basically pre-roll that will be integrated before the user starts playing your game. There's also the regular traditional rewarded ads where users will get a benefit from watching a reward. Now, the good thing about the Ad Placement API is that we do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So there's really nothing to worry about when it comes to caching, loading, thinking about what type of ad to show, because we are going to decide this based on the user experience. The only thing that you need to decide is where to place the ad break, and you let us do the rest of the handling. We also created at Google GameSnacks, which is basically an H5 platform by us to help you find the right audience for your users. What we do is essentially take your game and publish it and show it to the right users, because we have so much data to know which are the right users to show your game at. And your job would only be to develop a nice, beautiful game to entice as many users as possible. Right now, we have more than 35 million users that are active on the GameSnacks platform. And GameSnacks basically is available on so many different platforms, whether we think of Chrome, Discover, GPay, Android Auto, Play Games, Assistant, and much more. Since there's no downloading required, users love to just quickly bite, like a snack, your game. And this platform is the best platform to do so. Since GameSnacks is still a beta product with very limited spots available, if you're interested in publishing your game on GameSnacks, you can quickly also scan this QR code and let us know your interest, and we'll make sure to keep you updated with any relevant updates. With that, thank you so much for having me today. I'm going to pass it over to Elif, who's going to run us through Google Ads. Thank you again. Sorry.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Sheriff, for talking about AdMob and GameSnacks. Welcome to the new joiners. Cool. So before I start, who is familiar with Google Ads? Can I see hands? Okay. Don't be shy. It's okay not to be familiar as well. Totally fine. So we heard about from Sheriff about AdMob playables, like how to monetize your app or game. And what about, in addition to organic users, acquiring new ones? So I'm Elif. I joined Google 4 years ago. I started my journey at actually Sheriff's team at the monetization side, and it's been 2 years now. I'm working with Google Ads, with the biggest gaming companies mostly from France and Turkey, but also globally. I'm very delighted to be here today. I arrived in Cape Town last night, almost last night, like late, so I didn't have the chance to join the sessions, but I will be here tomorrow. If you have any follow-up questions or if you would like to ask anything, I will be around and my colleagues will be around. Feel free to stop us and ask any questions either during the networking break or later tomorrow. So today we will talk about how to leverage Google Ads to acquire users. Google App campaigns. They are easy to set up, simple to manage, effective at driving results. You might agree or not. If not, find me. If you do, that's great. We will have an overview of different kind of app campaigns. But why are they so easy? Because we leverage machine learning. If you look at setting up the campaign, instead of you deciding which demographics you want to focus on, either gender or age, we just leave it to the machine learning. So you focus on your own marketing goals, business goals, and then you let the machine learning do its magic. But how do we find the valuable users? You might still ask, even though, okay, you let the machine learning do its job. So there are 4 foundations when you set up the campaigns to really focus on. First one is to select the campaign type that matches your goals, which I will mainly focus on today. Second one is to set campaigns bid and budget. So this is something to be mindful of, because what in my day-to-day role, what I observe is that sometimes either the budget is super low or the target is too high. What happens if the target is too high, if it's not realistic, you're not getting any conversions, and therefore the campaign is not learning. And that's why it's not performing. So you need to make sure that you're having 10 to 15 of conversions per day for the campaign to learn and actually start performing. Third one is to create and upload your creative assets. I will touch upon this very briefly, like what are some best practices for you to drive the campaign optimization to its best. And last but not least is the measurement piece. We highly recommend you to use Firebase, which Barış will talk about after my presentation. But yeah, to summarize, the foundations are to make sure that your budget bid is on point, your creatives are supporting your game or app, and also you choose the right app campaign that I'm going to cover in a minute. So choosing the right app campaigns to hit your marketing goals. It really depends on where your app or game is, because if you're at the beginning, maybe it's not available even on Play Store, you could benefit from pre-registration campaigns. So you might have heard of this or not. If it's not available on Play Store yet, actually you can target users in advance for them to encourage them to pre-register so they can download your game or app when it's available on Play Store. And for that, you could also use some rewards to get their attention, so your creatives will be optimized for that. However, if you are at the more like soft launch phase, at the growth, you want to test new markets, you can focus on install campaigns. So we have 2 install campaigns. One is install campaigns, and the other one is called max conversion, which I will cover in a minute. And then, going back, we also have TROAS campaigns as well as re-engagement. And for re-engagement is mostly focusing at the maturity phase. So if you want to re-engage the users that are already there but who haven't been using your app. So to give an overview, we talk about, and this is not in order, so you can have a holistic approach around all different kind of app campaigns to see what is the best time for you to benefit from different kind of campaigns. So we have pre-registration, max conversion, installs, actions, value, and engagements. Let's talk about max conversions. When is it the most suitable time for you to benefit from this? So if you are launching a new title and you want to test this app, it is the best time to get the boost. Or if you have a new feature of the app, new level, new part, again, it's a good time to use max install campaigns. Or if you want to give a boost during Christmas or special days, you can still make benefit of max conversion campaigns. The difference between max conversion and install is that for max conversion, you just put a budget, and then campaign automatically optimizes for the highest number of conversions, so you don't need to worry about putting a specific target for the installs. Having said that, both max conversion and install campaigns are optimizing towards installs. So installs campaigns, we just mentioned, you put the target and it optimizes for getting the highest number of installs. Having said that, you might think like, oh, we are getting lots of installs, but these are not valuable users. That's okay, I see some nodding. That's normal, that's expected. The reason for that is this campaign is optimizing for installs. However, if you want to optimize for a specific action, then you need to go for action campaigns. For example, internally you see, okay, Elif, like we see level 5 is very important event for us because we see that they are staying in the app the most of the time if they completed level 5. That means then you can choose level 5 to optimize your campaign, and of course you will need to adjust the budget accordingly for that level. Another campaign type that we've seen success is TROAS. So for action campaigns, you put a specific target for that action that you want to optimize for, and for TROAS, you actually put a percentage. So either, like, depending on your business model, if it's mostly ads, then ad impressions, if it's more purchases in a purchase, or you can combine both hybrids, you can test TROAS on Android. It was on a beta feature until a month ago, maybe, or 2 months ago. Now it's available to everyone to test. And actually, we've been observing most of the budget shift from action campaigns to TROAS campaigns because it's been performing well. It's not open on iOS yet, but that will be also at the testing phase at the moment, so it will be available soon. Quick question. Action campaign can be optimized for any in-app action, including lower and upper funnel. Is it true or right? So we talk about action campaigns that you can optimize for a specific event, but is there a distinction between either it's the upper or lower funnel? Is it true? Can I see hands for true? Okay. Can I see hands for false? Okay, I see some hesitant, but most of you got it right. That's right. So regardless of the funnel, you can I see some smiles, makes me happy too. I see that I can tell that even though it's upper or lower funnel, it doesn't matter. You can, for any kind of action, you can use action campaigns. The only thing to keep in mind is that you will need to adjust your target depending on the event that you choose. Last but not least, app campaigns for engagement. So this is also one of the most important campaigns. I explain in a minute why, but please don't forget that you have many users who are ready to be re-engaged. So we see that 75% smartphone, 75% of smartphone users have downloaded an app and forgot it was on their phone. So this could be actually your users who downloaded the app and totally forgot to use it. So that's something to keep in mind. And the second reason is 37% of installs remain in use after 7 days. So that means there's a huge opportunity for you to actually tackle those users who are inactive. Again, you can do that with re-engagement campaigns. Last but not least, you see that 52% of existing customers spend more on in-app purchases than new ones. So that means that in addition to acquiring new users who are going to do in-app purchase in your app or game, you actually have the users existed there ready to do the in-app purchase, but you just need to nudge them with re-engagement campaigns. All right, so we see here a bit of representation around what kind of displays we use with Google Ads to show re-engagement campaigns, from search to AdMob to YouTube and Play. And the reason I wanted to show you this slide is you should also think of your creatives, because we talk about the foundations at the beginning, right? We talk about the creatives with budget ratio, app campaign type, and measurements, and creatives are one part of it. So when you're creating the creatives for engagement, you need to think of how you're going to approach these users, because they are not new to your app, but actually they have been familiar. So you could either focus on go to next level, complete level 4, or get additional coins or additional discounts. So it's important to make sure that it's clear in your creatives. And this is a representation around how the creative assets that you put comes into play in displays. And then here is also a quick overview around how it looks in different networks on Google. So to summarize a few points to give you highlights, start with lower target bids. Regardless of the campaign type, but especially for TIRAS, you should start with lower. You can always go higher later, but it's just super important to get enough number of conversions at the beginning so you can get some learning in the campaigns. Think of your conversion window. TIRAS campaigns, again, it needs to be up to 14 days. Usually we see 30 days for other type of campaigns, but you know your users the best, right? So look at your internal data to decide which day, conversion window of day, is the best to optimize. Because sometimes I observe that there's like day 90, even though only day 7 is important to the people. So make sure that you know your users and you use that data. Creative excellence is super important. So you can put lots of images, videos, and texts and playables, but important to have more than 30 seconds videos. The reason for that is to show on rewarded on AdMob and on YouTube, because the shorter videos could show like better performance on social media, but for Google, you need to have 30+ second videos. Last but not least, no changes until observing the full conversion window. This is also one of the mistakes I see quite often. Let's say your day 7 conversion window, and I see on day 1, day 2, day 3, lots of changes happening in the campaign, and it doesn't allow campaign to learn and optimize to the fullest. So that's it for Google App Campaigns, to connect with the right user at the right time with ease. Again, please find me if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to have a chat with you. The next step will be accurately measuring your success, which I will leave it to Barış to talk about.
Thank you, Elif. Can I also get the clicker, guys? Thank you.
Let me think about it.
Can I see a raise of hands who works in apps and gaming in general? You could be a developer, you could be a marketing person, you could work on monetization, just anything. Strong hands? Cool, thank you. Who here is a developer? Okay, we have that's cool. And who here monetizes their app? Through ads or in-app purchases? Okay, so I think we have a group who develops app, but are not really focused on monetization. And I'd just like to focus on analytics a bit to give you an idea on like what you can do with all of the stuff that we just discussed with first Sherif on monetization and then with Elif on user acquisition. So a bit of an intro about myself. I'm Barish. I lead the app analytics and growth practice in the Europe region with the AdMob Partnerships team. And I'm really happy to be with you here. I really look forward to getting your questions on the networking session. It's also great feedback for us to get to know what you guys are interested in and custom craft our content the next time we are in Cape Town or in Africa in general. So with that, I would just like to start with first-party data. You probably heard the term quite often, especially in the recent times. But what is actually the first-party data? First-party data is the information that you can collect about the users, about the consumers of your app, regarding their preferences in-app purchases, sometimes demographics, who uses the app, or the preferences, if they have any. And I would like to focus on Google Analytics. Can I see a raise of hands who heard about Google Analytics? Thank you. So Google Analytics has a mobile SDK called GA4, Google Analytics 4, and it actually connects all of your monetization or user acquisition spend. Because at the end of the day, you want to optimize your business in a way that maybe you have some organic growth, maybe you do some paid user acquisition, but at the end of the day, the spend should be justified by the monetization that you do either through ads or in-app purchases. So how does it actually work with analytics? Sherif just covered that you can monetize your app with AdMob, with the ads, but what happens is when you link Google Analytics with AdMob, we are able to actually collect the monetization information about the users. Whether your users are being monetized with AdMob network or another network or through in-app purchases like Google Play or Apple Store, we are able to ingest this in-app purchase information in Google Analytics and actually identify the users who are making the purchase. And on the spend side, if you are spending money on Google Ads, we just covered with Elif that Analytics and Google Ads has a synergy that feeds into the machine learning model of Google Ads. And how this works is whether you are collecting just the monetization data or you're collecting some custom events like users opening in-app shop or completing certain levels or reaching to some certain progression points, we actually enable some bidding strategies that Elif just mentioned on Google Ads. That could be just installing for volume, that could be for acquiring the users who are likely to reach to level 10, or they could be users who would be profitable at the end of the longer run thanks to the machine learning signals. And in return, Google Ads is actually pinging back the information about the campaign that a user was acquired from, and this is important that we will touch in a couple of seconds. But I just wanted to focus on whether you're just at the beginning of your development journey or you're already mature in terms of doing paid user acquisition or monetization. You don't have to think about these stuff in a siloed manner. You actually need to think that this whole ecosystem is feeding on top of each other. And then there is Firebase, and I hope you've also heard about Firebase. And it helps you with taking action on your first-party data. So can I see a raise of hands who has heard about Firebase? Who is using Firebase? Okay, that's great. And if not, then I'll give you some reasons to actually do so. So first is actually user segmentation. Depending on the user acquisition data coming from Google Ads or the engagement data that you are collecting, you can actually segment your users. So at the end of the day, you want to optimize your app for any kinds of user, but at the end of the day, there will be some majority of audiences that find your app interesting and you need to craft some custom experiences for them. And that's the same for monetization. Some users prefer to do in-app purchases, whereas some users are just appreciate that your app is free and they are happy with the ads interaction. And that's where we can actually take action based on these segments that we can create on Firebase to optimize and personalize the experiences that we provide for the users. So we can actually balance the ads monetization we get action on top of everything. Like we just covered, okay, collecting first-party data, we can link everything, then hopefully we will have a great baseline. It happens with a few features that I would like to introduce. We actually covered Google Analytics, but the key point here is Google Analytics is able to collect the demographical data, some native events, and also custom events. And custom events are very important for your app in order for you to actually track the progression of your users and collect contextual or behavioral data. And I'll give an example just right after this intro. Up next is Google Analytics user audiences. This is basically capitalizing all the information collected here, and we can come up with some sophisticated user groups like users from certain countries who have reached up to a certain progression level and they have made a purchase. We can actually create line by line rules on Google Analytics user audiences based on the information collected here and customize the experience of these users. And the way to do that, we actually use two tools, Firebase Removed Config and Firebase A/B testing. Removed Config basically takes the user audience as an input. So let's say I have a user group who has opened my app 5 times in the last 3 days and they've made a purchase. So this group is a group of users that I want to hold on. I don't want to push more ads to this user group. I just want to surface more in-app purchase opportunities in the expectation that I would get more revenue from in-app purchases. And in order for me to understand whether my hypothesis is actually valid or not, we have the A/B testing tool that actually benchmarks and default configuration against my hypothesis. And lastly, we have the push notifications and in-app messaging products that you can basically make use of thanks to the integration of the SDK to re-engage or engage with your users. So all in all, this is a whole suite of products that lets you analyze the user behavior, create targeting groups, then activate them using the Firebase product, and re-engage with them if necessary. So I just want to focus on a very practical example in order to make sure that we are all on the same page, and I'm happy to get your questions if you have later on in the networking session. But imagine I have an app. I have a game that I expect my users to first open my app, then there will be an optional tutorial. I will expect them to complete the level during the tutorial, and by the end of the tutorial, there will be an optional rewarded ad, and I would expect them to actually complete the rewarded ad and acquire the ad reward. So let's take a look to these same events through a timeline point of view. I just explained like there are some events that trigger automatically, and there are some events that you would need to actually implement yourself in order to keep track of your users in a meaningful way. The events that you see here, colored with yellow, are the ones that I implemented myself customly for this app so that I collect contextual data about the users. And this is important, and I just mentioned that we are able to build user audiences on top of that. But it's not just that. Going a level deeper, there are actually the event parameters. So if I take a look at the first open event, actually this event is pinging me back the user campaign that the user was acquired through a Google Ads campaign. I can see here that there was a user acquisition campaign focusing on tier 2 countries, and the objective was ad revenue optimization. Up next, if I want to actually calculate the score the users are achieving through the progression of their lifetime in my app, I can actually collect the score as a parameter in the level complete event, and then make use of that information in order to segment my users and push them different maybe game experiences, like one configuration being hard, another configuration being easy. And lastly, we have ad reward and ad impression events, which lets us actually calculate every single impression value and then accumulate it to form the total ad revenue that we actually make through the lifetime of this user. Then we have user properties that we can trigger ourselves if you want to go very deep with the user level data. As you can see, my user chose to go with the tutorial that was optional. That's why I set their game difficulty to easy. But then I can make use of this user property to actually change the behavior of the app and set it to hard. And why would I do that? Because here I actually have the multiple scores completed by achieving say my total score a user can achieve at a level was 200, and the average my user has achieved is 190. Obviously, this user is very skilled at this game, and I don't want to lose them. They are engaging. So it might be a good idea to just change the game difficulty. But before doing so, I would actually trigger a user property to set the player skill high, and then just manipulate the game difficulty into a hard mode and see if the user is still engaging. If not, I can change it back. So I just explained that we make use of the events data in order to actually create user audiences and then change the behavior of the app. So here we see that I actually created two user groups depending on where I acquired my user. This app is a hybrid monetized app, meaning that there is both in-app purchase options and the ad monetization options. And here I see that my first user campaign is actually tier 2 countries focusing on ad revenue optimization, meaning that I specifically acquired any user in this group for monetizing the ads. However, I might have also run some in-app purchases campaign in which Elif just explained. So in-app purchases target return on ad spend is another type of campaign that I ran. And obviously I acquired these users for two different reasons. First is just for ads monetization. The second, I expect them to actually make in-app purchases. So at this point, it's not meaningful for me to provide one-size-fits-all kind of experience. Because at the end of the day, I pay different price points for these users, and then I should be making use of this data to actually craft some custom experiences for them. So how does it work? We already covered that we collect analytics events that are focusing on, that can be triggered automatically. When we have the Google Ads and Google Analytics integration, I actually get the first user campaign data in the first open event. So this is true, this is triggering for any kind of app that you have if you link Google Analytics with Google Ads. Up next, I will actually be making user audiences to build two groups. The first group will be the focus on ad revenue optimization campaign, whereas the second one is focusing on in-app purchase monetization. So what I do is I'll actually provide these two audiences as an input to remote config. Then I'll just customize the experience of these users. What I'll do is I'll basically write a condition in remote config saying that if my user is a part of the user audience that is the ARO group, then I'll be pushing a more ads-focused configuration to them. And what could this be? This could be like placing a rewarded ad in the in-app shop, or it could be just increasing the ad frequency, or it could be just trying out new mix of ad formats that Sherif will us through. And for the other types of users that I specifically acquired for in-app purchase monetization, my expectation from them is to actually bring revenue through in-app purchases. And for this, what I could do is rather than placing an in-shop rewarded ad, I could be highlighting more in-app purchase offerings, or in between the levels, rather than showing ads, I could be highlighting some in-app purchase opportunities. I just want to leave you with one case study that we recently did with Wave Studio, who are located in Bucharest, Romania. So what Wave Studio has is a background changer app for Android, and how they were trying to monetize their users via subscriptions. So initially they run TROAS campaigns, target return on ad spend campaigns for subscriptions on the iOS, on the Android phone. But then they realized it's not actually getting much traction. What they did was they implemented a second user experience using remote config native ads, and then they basically rerouted their users through ad revenue optimization campaigns, and saw 30% growth via the ad revenue coming from AdMob. So with that, I hope I gave you a great overview of the different components that you should be making use of, and making use that they should all be feeding each other for you to have a profitable business on apps. And I'd love to take your questions in the networking session later on. So, Javi, are we going to have the networking session now, or yeah? We'll have panel discussion now. Okay, thanks. So we will have Javi, and Javi will be introducing
Today was a bit crazy because we're running around preparing for the event today.
Hello, hello, everyone. Just bear with me for 20 more minutes, and then we go into a networking time just to get to know each other a little bit better. So before that, we have 20 minutes now just to get to know better to Spencer, which is leading marketing in Carry1st, which I'm sure most of you know, one of the most successful mobile and publishing gaming company in Africa, and Timo, which is the co-founder and CEO of Prevo Digital. He has also a very interesting story. So I was thinking about introducing themselves, but I think you already heard me quite a lot. So I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves and to tell us a little bit about their journey.
Thank you, Javier. Yeah, as you mentioned, my name is Spencer. I'm growth lead at Carry1st, currently leading the Call of Duty mobile campaign here in South Africa. So we've partnered directly with Activision to be able to scale and promote Call of Duty mobile within this region. So we've been working on that campaign for the past 2 months. Originally from the US, I think the accent kind of gives it away, but I'm from California, moved out to New York afterwards, and now since am based in Cape Town. So excited to be here, and thank you for having me, and excited to meet all of you as well.
Thanks, Javi. So I'm Timo. You can guess my accent, maybe not. I'm originally from the Netherlands. My background is in marketing, was with Google before in Ireland, and now leading a digital agency based in Johannesburg, but working globally with businesses across advertising and marketplaces spectrum. And yeah, excited to be here. I think a lot to share and a lot of interesting things to talk about.
Great, thank you both. Great to. Can I get your backup?
Yeah, I can speak pretty quickly. Sorry. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Awesome. Yeah, I graduated with a good degree in economics as well as government, or European government as well. But how I found my way into Carry1st after graduating college, I ended up going into strategy consulting or management consulting because I think like a lot of people my age, I was very indecisive and had no idea what it is that I wanted to do. So decided to put some sort of business skills to test by entering the workforce in management consulting. So stayed there for about 2 years and then realized that the industry that I really liked was media entertainment. But at that point, I was still in the US, and so I was working at a company called NBC Universal, one of the largest companies for media entertainment in the US, working primarily on advertising strategy as well as their streaming platform, Peacock, which I thought was super interesting because it was at a time where streaming platforms like Netflix, HBO Max, Peacock, etc., were taking off really quickly. And so I thought that change and that trend within the media and entertainment industry was something that was very enticing for me. Like I love being a part of change and I love being a part of growing trends. And then afterwards realizing that I was more into the startup lifestyle and wanted to be a bit more on the ground and really hands-on. I think at a large corporation like NBC, where there are tens of thousands of employees, it's a bit hard to feel like you're one of many, whereas at a startup, it's a lot easier to have an impact. So wanted to get into the startup space. My brother actually lives out in Cape Town, so I had been here multiple times and loved the lifestyle. Being from Southern California, it's very similar. So decided that I wanted to move over here and find a startup and a job that I think was very exciting. And I was introduced to Carry1st, to the co-founders Cordell and Lucy. And I grew up a gamer. I'm very competitive in gaming, especially growing up with an older brother. So knew it was like a natural fit for me to be able to participate and be a part of a company that specializes in mobile games, particularly in Cape Town as well. So a very long-winded route, but I think everything happens for a reason, and so I'm very glad and grateful to be a part of Carry1st.
That's great. I think that's connecting the dots, right? Like coming from a big multinational company to a small one. How big was Carry1st when you joined? employees?
I've actually only been at CarryFirst for the past 2 or 3 months, but since then, every single Monday, we have like a Slack channel that has, you know, the hashtag general where all the announcements are being posted. So every Monday, we have like 2 or 3 new people joining. So it's growing really quickly. I think last year, this time last year, we were a company of around 20 to 30, and now we're around 65 to 70. So it's doubled within the past year, thanks to a lot of investment and also a lot of growth within the things that we're doing.
You choose the right time to join, right?
Definitely.
Thanks, Spencer. Yeah. So moving to you, Timo. Timo used to work in Google Ireland. Actually, I know him from our time in Dublin together. And then he moved to South Africa, and he set up his own company. And I think that's a very inspirational story for him to tell us a little bit more about why did you move, and what was the reasons behind, and how did you spot the opportunity to create a company?
Yeah, sure. So when I was at Google, I was working with businesses here in South Africa, mostly within the retail sector. And being at Google, I was in many situations where I was seeing what was happening, companies trying to promote their websites, promote their apps in different ways. And a lot of times I saw that clients, businesses, large businesses, didn't know how to properly understand how to grow a business online. It can be a challenge, especially if you don't have a digital background. And then my experience being at Google, also seeing from an agency world, the service providers, a lot of times they didn't really provide proper service. And being at Google, I saw both of those worlds. I saw in between, and I had to sort of be a mediator between everyone to both make sure there was quality, but also make sure there was growth and good relationship. So what I saw was basically there was a gap that businesses need a real good partner, somebody who walks the long road with them to help them grow. Not just say, spend a lot of money and hope for the best, right? But really look down into the data, look down into what are actually the things that are going to drive success, and build a business based on that. So now, 6 years later, we were a team of 15 people, not growing as fast as CarryFirst, but we have been growing quite a bit, and really seeing that if we partner with our customers, we can achieve significant growth. You're talking maybe 20, 30x growth, as long as you do the right things and you don't give up quickly, but actually invest into long-term relationships. Because I think one of the things we found is that businesses don't want to be, say, digital experts necessarily. They want to do the things that they are really good at, which is commercializing and executing on their business value proposition. It can be anything. But what they're looking for is they're looking for partners who are specialists in their field. And what they want is from those people to be a partner, to come alongside them and help them grow. And that's been our philosophy. And I think one of the things we've seen is that within the agency world, clients tend to change often between different companies. But we've seen something very different. We've seen where companies stay with us for years and years because they see that when it goes well, we're there, but also when it doesn't go well, which can happen to anyone, we're also there. So building that long-term relationship has really been key for us in terms of growing the team. And yeah, since then we've been expanding to try and stay true to what we believe is right, but also expanding our services. So doing advertising strategy across Google, social, and then marketplaces. And yeah, doing it from Johannesburg, so from Africa, but servicing the world. And I think that's been really exciting for us as well, to be exposed to what's out there, but still be able to rise here and to build up talent in South Africa.
Great. So 2 stories about opportunities in South Africa and in Africa, where I think there is a lot more to discover in our industry. So moving back to CarryFirst, Spencer, talking about Call of Duty. I think you were the first company just launching the mobile campaigns for South Africa. It's a huge title, I guess. Can you tell us, I think you've been responsible for that on the growth team. Can you tell us a little bit about the learnings, about the challenges? How is that going?
It's going really well. Our campaign actually ends at the end of this year, I guess for mostly the on-the-ground events. Just to give a brief background, we've been working with Activision to try to do something for a while, and we wanted them to believe that the African market was one that was worth investing proper, dedicated time in and effort. And so finally, we decided on an agreement for a campaign timeline for the past couple of months for us to be able to do a couple of things. One is host live events. So we started off at Comic-Con Africa. We've done live events at universities, at malls all around South Africa in different cities. And then the second thing is marketing. So social media, influencer marketing, email, text marketing, just to get out the call to action, which is to download Call of Duty Mobile. We actually were able to mark the beginning of the campaign with Tencent activating a server for South Africa specifically. So they dedicated a South African server, and I think overnight, before we even announced our campaign, I think all the players were freaking out because their ping dropped from around like 80 to 90 ms all the way down to 20. And they were very confused as to what was happening. And then when we officially launched the campaign and they understood that it was a server launch, they were extremely happy. So overall, the campaign has been a huge success. I think we've seen server performance go really well, and hopefully Tencent will be incentivized to keep the server open as well. And then for Call of Duty and for Activision, I think hopefully the future is more dedicated servers within the rest of Africa, because South Africa is only one part of the entire continent, and all the different continents have their own user bases and their own unique characteristics. So hopefully in the future we'll get a lot more dedicated servers and a lot more involvement from Activision into this continent. But some of the challenges, as you mentioned, definitely come in terms of scaling a large global game. I think our biggest challenge, especially given the characteristics of this market, is that Call of Duty Mobile is a pretty heavy game. It's 2.5 gigabytes on initial download, plus extra space for downloading maps, texture packs, characters, skins, weapons, etc. So for people to be able to do that on Wi-Fi infrastructure here or using their own data plan is asking a little bit much, and also asking a lot from people as well. So having to circumnavigate that has been definitely a challenge, but a huge learning for us. I think what we've focused on in our live events, because we're so laser focused on trying to get people to download the game at a live event. But for example, if you're in a crowded mall using public Wi-Fi, it's very hard to download something that big. So I think what we've pivoted our focus on is just leave people with the impression of having a really good time playing the game on demo devices. So we've been partnering with some folks as well to provide phones to be able to actually let the people play and download Call of Duty Mobile, and then leave it up to them to be able to download at home using better internet. But I think that's just a challenge that I think most games might face, especially out in this market, if they are a bit heavier in terms of their file size. But other than that, it's been great so far. A lot of people have been really enjoying it.
Great. Follow-up question about the servers. Did you find, I mean, when the lag just increased, I guess the time spent by user in the game probably increased, right? Because they win easily, right? They have better experience. And is that also impacting the retention or the cost per acquisition of the campaigns?
Yeah, actually, 100% it has definitely increased the average time that someone has spent on the game, because normally what would happen is, especially if you played matchmaking, you would be waiting very long times, especially during off hours, like late nights and stuff like that, to find a match against other human players. They do introduce some bots to the game sometimes just to reduce that time period, but there has been a notable increase in, first of all, the average amount of time that's been played, but second of all, I think on just daily active users. Throughout our campaign, we've actually hit the historical high of daily active users for Call of Duty Mobile in South Africa since its launch 3 years ago. And the server performance has done really well as well. So we're seeing all across the board, more people are playing Call of Duty Mobile, more people are staying to play Call of Duty Mobile as well. And we've run UA campaigns and retargeting campaigns as well, and they've also done quite well.
It's very interesting, and that's on, I touched it later, before, about the size of the game, right? The higher the size of the game, the lower the install rate, right? So when you think about 2.5 gigas, just think about what percentage of the population in Africa is able to install this game, right? So I think it's a huge impact on the needs of people that you can target. So thanks for sharing. So Timo, we have a few developers here who are not familiar with Google Ads or with Firebase or with AdMob, so I think they are still figuring out how to run or create their own business. I think if you can share a little bit of your experience, how is setting up a company here in South Africa, what are the learnings, scaling an app, being a founder from 1 employee to 15, I think is, I mean, we chat just about that, right? There's so many challenges, right? Because you are the founder, which is responsible for the finance, for the legal, for hiring, for firing, for growing, for pitching, for selling. I know you're coming on the street because he was, I think, pitching to a CEO earlier, right, about a new opportunity. So just if you can just summarize, like, what are the learnings, or how would you advise these people to think about setting up their own company?
How much time do I have?
It's a few minutes.
In a few minutes, I would say it's really important, first of all, that you really understand what's the value proposition that you have. Maybe that's a big word, but when I was talking earlier about seeing the gap about agencies not being a real partner to their customers, that was the gap in the market, and I still think it is. So 6 years later, that's still driving us, and we see that it's still working. So it means that the value that we're offering is something that clients still want, right? Now, why did that work? First of all, because personally, as a person, I believe that's important in relationships. And the way you work with people, you never try to just get short-term gain, but you try to build a long-term partnership by serving the other person. So that's really important, and the more that's part of who you are as a person, the easier it is to continuously do that and to make that part of the culture of your company even, so that the teams that you work with also start taking over that. That's the first thing. The second thing I would say is make sure that you get the economics right. Probably Spencer knows this better than I do, but there's very different ways in which you can make money, but making money is sometimes difficult and sometimes easy. It's about what's left of that money at the end of the month or end of the year. That's where the economics come in. I think especially in the app and in the gaming world, it normally requires big investment. That's all fine, right? But at what point does that balance tip towards you making your own money? I think that's the big challenge, and you need to really understand when that is, and also if that has happened, how secure is that? Is that only because there was something happening in the market, there was a spike, or is your value proposition, is the product or the service you have good enough that people want to keep paying you money because they like it? Me and Javi were chatting yesterday about very popular apps we probably all know, like Duolingo. And maybe when you want to learn a new language, you download the app and you use it and you pay for 12 months. But for me, that feels a bit like a gym membership. You pay maybe in January, but in March you forget about it, but you can't get out of it, right? So the value proposition is good, but actually people don't want to stay with you. So what do you have that makes people want to come back so that they continuously get value? And value can be in many different ways. It can be an experience. It can also be something that actually generates money again. So those are two important things. And then lastly, specifically to South Africa, probably Africa, is there is not a lot of talent. People who are really good in some of the technical work that is involved in probably in building an app or even in digital in general. Probably in US it's a lot bigger, or in Europe. So when you find the right people and you can teach them the right stuff, you need to make sure that they stay with you. It's really, really important, because it's not easy to find talent and people who have the right attitude to work. And then the last thing I would say is it's super important that you build a network. Especially in Africa, people are very relationship focused. And I think for me and my business, 90% of the growth of the business has come from relationship, from networking. If you do well for one person, they will tell their friends, they will tell their family, and they're happy to introduce you to other people. And that has really made a massive difference here, where it's more relationship focused, maybe not as formal as in other countries. And then, yeah, over and above that, you just stay close to what drives you as a person and what you believe is going to make other people impressed or happy, so that they're willing to give you their money. Yeah.
Great, thank you both. I know we are running out of time, but I want to just open for questions. Anyone who wants to ask questions to either Spencer or Timo?
Thank you. Over the last few years with apps, games and non-games, it's been a rush to installs, right? Everyone wanted installs. And then people start to realize that installs are worth actually nothing. if there's no engagement and proper LTV. And I've been working extensively with Google Ads. Actually, was also a former Google employee. I talked with Timo a few days ago. And I realized that even with Google campaigns, it's pretty easy to drive installs. But I struggle actually with my customers who are not always games, but to actually drive engagement. So I'm wondering, how do you look at the marketing side of things in driving engagement and retention? What works best? Google, non-Google, you know, and what have you really experienced in this field?
Yeah, I mean that's a fantastic question. I think from my current experience with Call of Duty Mobile, since our main KPI is installs, I think what you have to think about naturally is, as Timo was saying, like the value proposition, as big of a term as that is, of your underlying offering, right? If you're driving people to a storefront, for example, they can go to the storefront, they can see it, they can browse, but what's going to actually keep them there and keep them engaged and maybe potentially get them to buy something is the actual intrinsic value of the offering. So if it's a game, for example, like, is the game fun? Is the game playable? Is the game replayable? I think all those has to lend itself to the actual offering that you have. There's only so much that you can do from the marketing end to be able to get people to engage with it. There's probably certain things. For example, what we just did with Call of Duty Mobile is that I think for them, their UA campaign was bolstered by a lot of generic creatives that they used for the global campaign. We made localized creatives based off of either familiar environments, like we made a Cape Town cinematograph so that they could include in their localized creatives in their UA campaign. And we also did localized voiceovers, so with like an ad with a South African accent or in different languages, so that they know that they're actually paying attention to that market. We got a significantly high engagement, higher CTR from that particular advertisement, just because I think if it responds and resonates well with the local market here. So I think the approach, I guess, for long story short, is have taken a very localized effort to it, study the characteristics and the attributes of what the market that you're looking at, and then applying that into the creatives and into the marketing campaign that you do, whether it's familiar environments, familiar languages, familiar scenes, or just in general having a better offering and having something that people will want to come back to and play.
Maybe I can quickly add as well. Definitely marketing can't fix a poor value proposition or a poor experience, right? So I think if you get a lot of installs, that is one good thing, because it allows you the opportunity to see if people install, what do they do? Maybe they don't do everything you want them to do, but maybe they reach a certain point in the app, even during the onboarding process, for example. So what happens, for example, if you would remove the whole onboarding process and make it even more accessible to use the app? Where do people then stop using it? So it's almost like reverse engineering what your success looks like, and then trying to find where do people stop, because that's then the point where you lose them from a value perspective. They don't actually see value anymore, or the experience is so painful that they don't want to continue, right? But if they know there's something really good coming, they will continue even on that step. So it's about getting that data and as much of it, and then seeing where do people drop off and A/B testing different ways of actually getting them to proceed beyond that step.
Can I ask a follow-up question? One thing that I find also very interesting in this industry is that marketing and product are usually pretty siloed, right? And marketing teams work on their end to work on marketing strategies for acquisition and retention, and product builds amazing games, amazing apps, like amazing features, but sometimes it's not even what the market needs, right? Or what the users want. So what are you seeing evolving in industry in product feeding marketing, marketing feeding product, and what do you think should be best practices in this extent? What are the best examples of companies or publishers who do that?
I can give an example of, we have an event in Dublin actually on Tuesday and Wednesday. Some of the Googles were there, and I met a customer from France. They are developing a Sudoku, and they've been just doing A/B testing through all these Firebase non-bidding features, which is what you said, just connecting marketing with product, right? Testing new things. And they moved the retention up from 25% to 40% day one. And I asked him, how the hell can you increase retention 15 points up in a single, it's a very simple game as Sudoku, right? What did you do? Did you just change the font? Did you just, and say, no, we just try to find the game more engagement. And we did it by just unlocking new achievements, giving you different options to purchase some skins, do it multiplayer, so things like that. So very simple game. You can just kind of double the retention. If you think about double the retention of day 30 from 2 to 4%, it's going to double your monetization as well, right? So I think it's a fair, I mean, that's a very fair question about why don't we collaborate much closer, probably with marketing. I think the smaller companies try to do it quite well because there are less people and working on both sides. But the biggest one I find is a little bit challenging. Okay, last question because they're gonna kill me. We're 10 minutes late.
Hello, my question is for Spencer. I'm Madiba Olivier, the founder of Kiro Games. I have two questions, in fact. The first is Carry First committed to publish African game for the world? Because I know that on paper, but I think we have talked with your predecessor, but it was not really in that mood. So I don't know if now it's really changed. Like if you have good games from Africa, are you committed to publish it outside too? Okay, distribute it first. And the second is for Google now. How do you manage, for example, what advice do you give to a studio who want to avoid bot installs? Because this is one of our biggest hell as when we use Google Ads. We really found that there is a lot of bots who use finally our budget advertising. So do you have tips to block bot install when we run ads or something for Javier and Spencer?
Yeah, I can
and
answer.
Timo can answer too, of course.
Yeah, I can answer the first question. I'll hand it over to these two. But yeah, no, Carry First is, I think our mission is to amplify the voices of African game developers and take their games to market. We actually have partnered with an incubator out in Cape Town, Crazy Hubs, to be able to partner with local game developers here and see of the games that are incubated, which ones we want to publish and take to market as well. So we've ended up having to partner with one game called The President that ended up becoming incredibly popular. I think it has 10 million downloads or so. And that's one that was a local game over here that was made and created within that incubator. So that's definitely number one on our priority. We're open to all gaming studios, especially for mobile games, but I think especially from being Africa-based and being around so many talented people, especially the ones that we've met here so far in Africa Games Week, definitely on our priority. Okay. And then I'll pass it over to you.
How did you, or maybe Elif can answer, but how did you define bad installs? Maybe that's a good question too.
In the event of Pirate Bay, you realize there are some non-human reaction, like you have the event of first open the game, but someone don't even get to the title screen, and you know there is no crash between it. And you also have some reaction like, we also have frauds in Google Pay, where you can see bots buy stuff every 2 seconds. That is humanly impossible, for example. So that's how we realize that there are some bots player, and coming from installation, when we see the event repartition between normal human reaction on the fact that this is the population that finished the tutorial, population, etc., etc. You see that there's no logic in this rates of people doing this and this doing that often.
Yeah. Regarding Google Play, I don't have an answer for that. Regarding Google Ads, I know when you launch a title for the first time on the Google Play Store, there are some kind of bots who are testing that the game is good. So there might be like a 50 to 100 installs, which they are not organic installs. But if that's happening when you have campaigns of over, I don't know, €1,000 a day or dollars a day, then that's something we need to review. But we normally do that once we launch a game for the first time. There is like a kind of bots who are testing that it's a legit game, that is not just, you know, like a copycat from a different one. But if it's on a no, but the bot is trying to see the frame. But if it's with a bigger amount of spend, that's something that we need to discuss. Elif, sorry, she's the expert.
No, thank you. I can just quickly add, again, all different products, different teams, like happy to look into Play. I cannot talk on behalf of them. But from the Google Ads side, two recommendations I can give. One is to exclude some countries. That might be the reason, like looking at the geos. And the second one would be, we talk about different kind of app campaigns, right? So for installs and max conversion, and sometimes even for action, we see that more often compared to Tiroas, and that's why also Tiroas have been a good solution, and that's why I mentioned the budget shift, not only because it's been performing well, but also there were some other partners who had concerns like you, experience like you, that there are some fake installs or like invalid clicks and so on, which helped them to actually focus on the valuable users with Tiroas to decrease it, even though you cannot zero it, but at least you can minimize it with these recommendations.
Great, thank you everyone for your engagement, and please let's give a big round of applause to both. Sir. Good. We have 30 minutes now to just network, maybe a little bit less, right?
We have 20 minutes,
20
and
minutes.
we have some snacks outside, and then we will have a YouTube Shorts export session, and also a chat with Malia Games.
And if you want to chat to Spencer or Timo, they will be around for a while. Thank you.
like, do you wanna? Should we start, or should we wait a little bit more? Huh? Let me just ask him. Is it working? Like, yeah. All right. Yeah, I promise I'll be as quick as possible. I know after a full packed day, I just realized we are just between you and the end of the day, so I'll try to be as most relevant as I can. And well, first things first, just introducing myself. My name is Alfredo, and what I do at Google is the International Growth Team. And basically what I help is customers to go to overseas markets and be successful. Previous to that, I helped customers and apps to grow into multiple different regions. And today, what I wanted to talk to you, regardless if you're mobile app developers, PC game developers, or anyone in the app gaming space, how can you think internationalization to go global and be more successful? With that, let me just get the clicker here. Starting with the context. Can you hear me well? Sorry, like I just well, going global in a certain word, our current context. We know how operating global markets can be daunting nowadays. Inflation, rising prices in energy and food, the costs in pressure on the user purchase power. So, and we still have a pandemic in its aftermath. So it's a lot to face and it's overwhelming. And then why are these guys talking about going global now? What is the reason that I'm here? Well, because although there are a lot of challenges to face, we also know that if the business is agile, the opportunities to grow are bigger than they ever been before. The time to go global, especially for gaming companies, are just decreasing over time. And even more important to our context right now of shifting the focus to increase profitability and making sure that we are sustainable as a business, if we are able to grow into different countries and and publish the game in different countries, we will be able to diversify the risk, and ultimately what we're talking here is having a long-term sustainability and lower risk for your business. So considering the relevance of the topic for today, where is the opportunity in apps and gaming? Where does the data show that the growth is coming from? And looking at the data from our partner, App Annie, now Data AI, what we see is the African continent showed the highest growth in both downloads and revenue in the past year, which just reinforces how the ecosystem is growing. And if we look at a few other metrics of the mobile usage time and the mobile penetration in the region, it shows that it's just the beginning of a growth wave that we are seeing. And if we zoom in into the African countries to see where this growth is coming from, what you see on the right is the revenue that shows that the South African market is still the biggest in revenue, but we have at least 4 or 5 markets growing at more than 100% year over year. And that could potentially be target markets for your apps and for your games. Well, with that said, if we zoom in into the South African market, not looking only for today, but looking for the future, how is it expected to grow? And what we see here is a very positive scenario of expected growth to $630 million by the end of 2023, with gaming contributing to more than 50% of the revenue, followed by photo and video and social apps. So it's a great reminder that the region is growing, the South African market is growing, but also important to remember, as gaming businesses, we have the potential to reach all the other regions and all the other continents. And if we are not reaching, or if we are not being successful yet, why are we not there yet? And what are the challenges that we need to overcome as a business to be on these countries? What this research shows us is that 60% of the companies that go to abroad say they lack access to relevant market information. So knowing how to prioritize in which the countries they should go into. And even bigger, 83% of the exporters say they lack know-how on overcoming the operational hurdles that is related to expanding to a new country. And these two challenges are the challenges that the international growth team at Google helps customers with on how to customize their approach and decide which countries they should go into. And to help with this, just giving an overview of the path to international expansion, what are the resources out there that can help you with these challenges? Well, firstly, like a simple overview, it's a 3-step. First, deciding where to go, where the opportunities are, similarly to what we did, and showing the growth in the region and the countries. Secondly, on preparing the operations, what it means to go into different countries and how you can make sure that they have a smooth operation. And thirdly, from scale to take off, how to make sure you have a process to launch, measure, and build your brand there. If we dig a bit deeper on deciding where to go, there are basically 3 steps that we need to look into. First, more internally, defining your success metrics. Basically, what does success look like for your business? What are the objectives that you have in mind? What are the ambitions and the KPIs that you have? And here, there is no answer that fits all, but depending on your app, on your genre, or the game that you're trying to develop, there are some benchmarks that can help you to define this internally. And once you move to the opportunity identification, it's time to look up to the outside and look into which countries fit the criteria for your business that you're trying to find. And once you define this criteria, it's time to segment and map these countries and trying to prioritize in the framework similarly to this with what are the countries that are going to invest and make sure to succeed and fine-tune your operations to be successful there. And even more importantly, which are the countries that if you try, if you don't succeed, that you are going to forego in the first moment. And then thirdly, when we talk about competition, it's also very important to map from 5 to 10 apps that are going to be your peers, so you can track the evolution of your app over time, how you're doing the metrics of engagement, of retention, so you can see how this is evolving over the benchmark. But also more importantly, when you're talking about expansion, this will allow you to see what are the others doing successfully in these markets. Are they localizing their apps? What are the features that they are doing? And what are the prices they are charging? So that's why it's also important to have this part mapped up. Secondly, when we go to the operations itself, when we talk about the gaming business, one of the key challenges is about the localization. So should I localize my games into the markets? How do I do it? What are the things that I need to take into consideration? Well, when we say localization, first things that comes into mind is translating the creatives that you have for your marketing campaigns. And that's right. That's one of the parts that you need to translate. But for your user to have a complete experience, there are other things that you need to be considering as well. So like the store listings, the app strings, the voiceovers, and the app itself for the user to have a complete experience. And in that sense, one key consideration is how to have a reliable provider. How are you going to do this localization? Is it in-house? Do you have an agency partner that you trust to do the localization? Because if you have the localization for one day and it's good, but on day 2 or a different part of the app is not as the high quality as it was on the other parts, the experience for the user is also ruined. So take that into consideration when choosing the partners. And the second and third thing, they're important, especially for gaming, on the string and style of your characters. If you have characters on your app or how you communicate, make sure to have the same tone and different languages that you're expanding. And third, a very important part about localized pricing, it's a very powerful tool to capture the demand where the countries have different purchase power. So Google allows you to choose sub-dollar prices for countries with different purchase powers. So just replicating the strategy for tier 1 countries as US and countries with less purchasing power is not the perfect strategy. So make sure to localize pricing whenever possible. And the last part about regulatory and legal considerations. When localizing the content, it can be that you need some certifications to promote your product or your type of game in these different countries, or also even the language or the wording of what you're selling needs to be adapted in these countries from a regulatory and legal perspective. And once you are able to figure out the localization part, it's time to think about the scale to take off. And here, all my colleagues already talked about how to take the most out of the Google products. And here, when we are talking about expansion, the key takeaway is how to make sure you have a process to evaluate the new expansions, the countries that you're trying for the first time. Because when you expand, the users on these new markets, they don't know the product yet. So the expectations should be different from the countries that you're already operating. So making sure that you have a process to have the right expectations and making sure that you fine-tune the operations on the localization and pricing and other important details will be key to succeed in these markets. And with that, just treat it like as if it was like a product launch, trying to have a pre-launch, growth, and maturity, so you know in which stage is each one of your countries that you're expanding into. And lastly, to wrap us up here, is that most markets can be profitable with the right product and approach. So don't lose sight of the big picture in the sense, it can be that you try one country in the local region and it doesn't work on the first try, but if you were able to get the localization right or the other aspects on how to engage with your users in these markets, it can be that this market will be important for your business. And ultimately, what we are talking here about the expansion is how to lead your business to have a higher profitability and less risks in the long term. So that's why it's so important to consider and be intentional with your export strategy. And with that, I wrap my part up here. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll pass the word to Zeph, our YouTube lead. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This really does feel like the graveyard shift, right? But we're going to try and make it fun. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation to come and chat to you all. My name is Zeph Masote, and I am the YouTube lead for Southern Africa. I'm based in the Google office out of Johannesburg. I've been with Google, by way of introduction and background, I've been with Google for just over a year, 15 months to be precise. My background is in media and entertainment, having dealt with media rights negotiations before, so especially within TV and film, with a particular focus on sports rights entertainment. So we are watching now and paying particular attention to the World Cup. I used to sell World Cup rights to the big broadcasters around Africa. I also headed up distribution at Disney for a time, and then also Fox International Channels. So my background really is in the Google world. They call it old media, right? So when people make an appointment to go and view, but I've now come into a new and exciting world of YouTube, right? Where it is all on the go, and we give you, or you have an opportunity as an audience to be served up and consume content that is relevant to you. So then, our ecosystem in South Africa, or as YouTube, is actually led by music. I think I don't need to ask that rhetorical question as to what do you think is the biggest vertical on YouTube, right? So when you walk into anyone's home at the moment, the first things pretty much that you will see is YouTube music playing and serving you up entertainment on the background. However, the second biggest vertical that we have on YouTube is gaming, right? This is the global stat that we have, that gaming serves up all the audiences that people, or that keep people engaged on the platform. From a South Africa point of view, however, gaming does not register a real blip. And this is true for all of Africa. So if gaming on YouTube is low in South Africa, and we see by the numbers that have been shared here in terms of consumption, South Africa is leading from a revenue perspective. But if it's leading, South Africa is leading on YouTube, if South Africa is not registering, we would then imagine that the rest of the continent is also lagging behind from gaming being a leader. Oh, please excuse me, my screen has just gone dead. The intro was longer than anticipated. So yeah, that's the stat to say across all the verticals that we have at YouTube. So we have TV and film, music, gaming, the influencer market, or the creators that we see and love all the time. Out of all of that, gaming is the second largest. With that, the numbers that we have on gaming are astounding. We have over 40 million active channels on YouTube, gaming channels, right? And those channels consume or produce 100 billion hours of content per year. And this is a stat from 2021 that we can share, right? And out of that, 800 billion hours are produced of gaming-related content, and 90 million are live streams. These are big numbers that encourage people to come onto the platform, to spend time on the platform, and this is the ecosystem that, from a South Africa perspective, we are here at Africa Games Week speaking hopefully to publishers and from tomorrow, the gamers themselves. With that, over 200 million, we've got over 200 million active customers logged in each and every month. And this is what makes YouTube compelling as a platform for gamers. Just get that. I spoke about 100 billion hours of content being produced or consumed on there. The number for last year was In total, 118 billion hours of content was produced. 100 billion of that 118 can be attributed to YouTube. So this actually says, if you're going to be a gaming publisher, if you're a gaming creator, YouTube is your home. We have another bluish, greenish competitor that people generally run to. I think out of this stat, you can actually see that the audiences come and reside on YouTube. And if monetization, as it is for all of us, is an imperative, YouTube actually monetizes best, but audiences are also residing on YouTube. So then the question is, how or what makes YouTube gaming unique? It offers the widest array of gaming content, or gaming a home for creators, publishers, and audiences to discover communities that reflect who they are, as well as their aspirations. So as YouTube, we are evolving as an organization. We were, at the beginning, when we started in 2006, wonder of wonders, we were short form companies, right? The first YouTube video that was produced was a short, right? It's called At the Zoo. And then, of course, we transformed and morphed into a long form. And then in 2021, we launched shorts. But again, every format has a home on YouTube, and VOD is still king. But live and shorts are still increasingly shifting consumer behavior. We are speaking of mobile here, and so let me also throw in a mobile stat. 3 out of 5 of the top 5 games on YouTube are mobile games. So there's also a home for mobile gaming on YouTube. So just on the business end, we like to speak priorities that govern us from a vertical perspective. So I'm just going to share 3 highlights as to, from a 2022 perspective on gaming, what are the 3 priorities that we focused on. The first one, and this is focusing on gaming publishers, right? So it is to elevate the live experience or the live product. So here we served up more ways for you to reach your community, for them to be able to discover and interact with your content. We focused on better live discoverability, which obviously benefits visibility and engagement. Second, I've spoken about shorts a couple of times. We've provided ways, or shorts provides more ways for your community to engage with you. And this is a short form or a quick and easy way for people to access on their phones new content via the vertical screen to discover fresh and new content, and is also an easy way or a lower barrier to entry for creators to get in and make content. Third way is monetization. YouTube is known for its ability to monetize content very well, and we've extended ways for creators to be able to monetize their content. So we've included channel memberships as well as gifted memberships, where you are able within a live stream to buy memberships for other streamers who are online with you at the same time. So and with this, you're able to increase your monetization on the channel. I was spoken earlier off or introduced as I'm coming to talk about shorts. So we've all, I think, within the ecosystem heard of shorts. But what are shorts? They are a short form, excuse me, it's a short form mobile optimized experience centered around the vertical. So the vertical, if someone has their phone, obviously it's straight up, and it's videos of a duration of 60 seconds or less. They're integrated into the YouTube app and directly accessible by anyone coming onto the app. So, key things to know about YouTube Shorts. YouTube Shorts is here to stay. We are doubling down on YouTube, and of course, we made an announcement in September about monetization coming onto YouTube. So please allow me to get technical by using a term called YPP. It's the YouTube Partner Program, right? So YouTube Partner Program is how creators on YouTube are able to monetize. That's where you need 1,000 subscribers as well as 4,000 watch time hours and have no community guideline strikes. So that means you stay within the guidelines that Google and YouTube give for you to be a friendly member of the community. You pass those 3, you are then able to monetize. That's the general way of how YouTube creators are able to monetize. YouTube Shorts monetization launches in Q1 2023, and now we are opening the ecosystem to everyone to be able to monetize on Shorts. So this is just us saying we are here to stay. We're here to enable and activate the creator ecosystem to be able to grow and to afford our creators more ways to be able to monetize. So YouTube is here to stay. We have surpassed over 30 billion daily views globally, right? So from a platform that launched just last year, August 2021, we've now gotten to the threshold of crossing over 30 billion views. So Shorts is growing, and it's growing at a rapid rate, and it's being adopted. So for the publishers in the room, please start thinking of Shorts as your organic strategy, as part of your organic strategy to reach your audiences. Advertising on Shorts is in its early days, so I've just spoken about monetization. So for those who run app campaigns, ACIs, those who run VACs or discovery campaigns, you can expect your ads to start showing up on Shorts with these campaigns very soon. I spoke about Q1 next year, so that's what's going to happen. But short form is not just about a moment. And what we mean about that is it's not just about, oh, I see it and I go on. A recent poll shows that people actually spend more than 30 minutes per day consuming short form content. So that means once they get into it, they engage with it for long periods of time. So in your mind, or as an advertiser, do not think of it as it's a fleeting moment for audiences to engage with the content. People actually spend time on Shorts or short form content, consuming the content that they love. So YouTube continues, however, to be the home of long form content too. We should keep in mind that long form and short form content serve different purposes, and both should be seen as important to a broader video strategy, right? So I just want to share how then key ways to use Shorts, the highlights of Shorts. So the question is, how do people get into Shorts? People find you by tapping. I should have brought my phone up here. People, you go onto the bottom of your screen, there's within the YouTube app is the ad, the S, that stands for short. You can tap onto that at the bottom of the YouTube app. People find Shorts on the homepage, in their notifications, as well as checking their subscriptions. Once they tap into a short, viewers can scroll to watch more videos. So now here, I just want to share the top ways that people or creators are using Shorts to be surfaced up, right? So it's top gameplay, where you share, you show off your gameplay moments, challenges, funny moments, gaming culture. I call it the bottom one, top listicles. Going through the top list, for example, 5 weapons that are consumed or that you as a gamer are using within a particular game. These are the various strategies that our creators are using to improve their visibility and virality on Shorts. So then, the parting shot that I want to leave you with where Shorts is related is, it is here to stay. We are monetizing this 30 billion daily views being consumed on Shorts on a daily basis, and we're looking forward as an ecosystem for South Africa to growing our engagement, to growing creators who are gamers, to engaging more with publishers for their success. So thank you very much for affording me the time. Thank you very much for affording me your ears. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. We have one last panel discussion, so you will need to hear me for a few more minutes. I'm going to invite Hugo to come in. Come on, guys. How are you going? Sorry, we're a little bit late.
No worries.
Thank you, Timo. Bye-bye. Okay, so now that we are a small family, I think we've been just losing people from the beginning. I'm going to make sure we have this discussion with Hugo, as open as possible. So I'm just saying, everyone, that I don't want to be the one asking questions here, so I will open to the audience as much as possible because it was quite an engagement before. So I was thinking about introducing Hugo, but maybe I think he can introduce himself. Very quickly, he's the CEO and founder of Malillo Games. He created the company back in 2012. He grew up in Lagos. He's been learning finance in Manchester, strategy skills in Singapore, worked for General Electric. I think it's very, very interesting profile. That's why we thought it would be very inspirational and very good for everyone to hear from himself. And I just want to start with the first question, and then I will just allow you all to ask, but just we would like to know, how did you come up with the idea of creating Malillo Games after all this diverse background that you have?
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here amongst friends, familiar faces. So my journey with Malillo began in 2012 when I was looking to do something different. Relocating back to Africa, I think that was the primary goal, was kind of like move back to the continent and apply myself. And I was looking at the various kind of like opportunities within the continent. And I stumbled into gaming, or stumbled upon gaming, and looked at the industry and realized the potential that it had to kind of like create economic opportunity, create jobs. And Africa wasn't really doing anything at the time. Because of my background in business and strategy, I kind of like figured that I could put together the factors of production to help create a game, potentially build a company, hopefully build a successful company. And that was how the journey began.
Great. What are the biggest challenges that you found in 2012? I guess when we think about App Store optimization, all these topics from today, I think they didn't even exist, right? So you just probably need to find ways to develop, or find someone to help you how to upload, or just make a game just even possible to be played. Right?
So what was interesting at the time was, obviously this was the era of fragmentation. You had multiple platforms for mobile, BlackBerry, Nokia, Windows, iOS, Android. So you had to decide, and like back then, even a platform like Unity wasn't that sophisticated. So you had to decide on what to prioritize, and that was really a challenge. So we actually started off with web, just browser-style games, and luckily enough, we kind of like saw the consolidation happen. I think between sort of like 2013, 2014, consolidated it. A lot of the other platforms became less prominent, and when we focused on Android development and then iOS after that. But the biggest challenge that I think we faced continuously was on the talent side. Like finding technical developers to help with the projects that we were working on. There was a lot of like artistic talent and creative talent within the market, but like the technical talent was really lacking. And that was the biggest challenge that we had.
And tell us about the current setup. I think you told me earlier there are 20 people on the company. They are split across several African countries, working remote. Can you just set up a little bit more about the current setup of Malillo Games?
Yeah, so we started growing the studio significantly in the last 12 months, and we also started growing the team across multiple African countries. So we currently have teams in Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, and Cameroon. And the reason for this is because obviously our objective is to be a Pan-African studio, so having talent from across the region really helps in terms of the creative input. And also helps with the market access when it comes to kind of like getting the products in the hands of users. And gender-wise, we have I think like 30% of our staff are female, and then like 50% are engineers, and then the other 50% support the engineering team.
Great. I'm going to ask a question that it was asked in the previous panel discussion about marketing and product teams, right? Just being a remote working company, sometimes it might be a little bit harder to connect the dots, right? We know how important it is to work marketing product for both monetization and acquisition sides. How do your teams work in that sense? Are they quite aligned? Do they develop games thinking about the product and marketing together, or?
Yeah, so in terms of like working remote, I think it's there are several reasons why we ended up doing remote work. So obviously one was the pandemic, which forced every single one of us to go remote. I think there are like infrastructure challenges, especially around transportation. Most of the people that work in the creative sector know how disruptive it is to go through traffic every single morning, settle into work, get work done, and then have to like deal with traffic in the evening. You know, like those types of challenges is even like exacerbated when you look at a market like Nigeria, where you could spend like 4 or 5 hours in commute, and it's not nice traffic. It's really like, it's actually, so you're not traveling on trains or traveling, you know, you're really stuck in traffic because you don't have sort of like good enough road infrastructure. The other reason, obviously, is a cost reason as well. So obviously, people save a lot of money if they don't have to commute to work. But I think like during the pandemic, we realized that productivity wasn't really impacted when people were working remotely. People were still very productive, working very efficiently, delivering or meeting their deliverables. So, you know, after the pandemic, we decided to stick this way. The other reason was that when we started to kind of like bring talent in, or when we started growing the talent base, we realized that the best people were not necessarily concentrated in some of the sort of like larger cities. And having to ask people to relocate can be very expensive and also very disruptive. So that could also be a reason why people don't venture into certain sectors or don't want to work for certain companies, because they prefer to live at home or live close to their families. And being able to work from where they live made perfect sense. So that was a natural thing. And in terms of like, you know, the team's ability to collaborate, you know, we've seen people work very well, you know, like cross-functional, you know, multicultural, obviously across borders, seamlessly. You know, like I think because obviously the common passion, the common interest that they have for game development, so like they're fully aligned. And that alignment, you know, helps in terms of decision making, in terms of prioritizing, in terms of delivery. So everybody understands what the objective is. And the other thing that we've also done is kind of like design these systems and processes that standardize a lot of like things that people do, so that we make decisions as a block. You know, like we've outlined, you know, like we kind of like figured out a simple mechanism for prioritizing the decisions that we make so that it's more optimal, you know, and there's some things that you don't have to really decide on. They're already like decided just by the way things are designed. And that's just driving high levels of efficiency and execution.
Okay, so TLDR, remote work, works for gaming companies, right?
Yeah, very. I mean, like for us, it's, you know, because like, and this is also enabling us scale as well. So if, you know, like we have plans to double our team in the next month, and we are able to do this without worry of, you know, our ability to integrate people into the team, our ability to kind of like have them work efficiently or adapt to kind of like remote working. So we're quite confident in that regards. But obviously, you know, doubling the size of a team from 20 to 40 can be quite a challenge. But, you know, we'll see if our systems are robust enough to support that.
Good. And just only for you, because you stay until the end, he's still hiring people for the monetization team. So if anyone is interested or knows someone, just get in touch with Hugo. Just talking to these people earlier on the network session that we have, most of them are on early stage, just trying to find out the successful title to really scale the company. What would be your advice from someone who's been in the industry for a decade now? What should they prioritize? Where do you see the biggest failure or roadblocks for developers who are trying to be successful in this world?
Yeah, so my you know, this is what I tell my team, and again, like, you know, the standardization really helps. Get the product in the hands of the users as quickly as possible. Like, that's pretty much it. You know, like everything else follows on from that. So the longer you delay that process, the longer you delay the, you know, like the inevitable, right? Because if you're gonna fail, you wanna fail fast, you wanna learn, you know, like another thing that I say to my team is that, you know, we learn the most when we fail. You know, there's not a lot to learn when we succeed, right? But when we don't do something very well, we can evaluate why, and, you know, understand that and share that knowledge across the board, and just make sure that people don't make that type of decision in the future. And game development, I think, is kind of like very repetitive, right? There are loads of like standardized things that you apply within a game. So once you develop mastery of one, you can move on to the next, and on to the next, and on to the next. And it's a combination of a lot of those things that you've mastered that would eventually help you produce a successful game. we haven't yet produced a successful game. I mean, like, because I rate success in terms of like delivering large volumes of users, high levels of engagement, and obviously the monetization that comes with it. But we are going in the right direction, which gives me the confidence that we would get there sooner than later.
Great. Any question for Hugo? Anything you want to know? Please go ahead.
Hi. I just want to know, how do you get users for your mobile games? What strategies do you follow?
So we do the lazy thing. I like to call it lazy. We do paid user acquisition, unfortunately. But you know, I recognize the fact that that is not sustainable. It's not it's scalable if you have more dollars to spend, and you know, our friends here, I'm guessing, would prefer for us to kind of like keep on in that trajectory. But I think that, you know, it's for now it's good. So if you're a developer, you develop a game and you have a prototype and you put it to market, you know, paid user acquisition is way more effective because you can just automate that system and acquire the users into your game and get the data, rather than running around trying to acquire a, you know, like a decent number of users into your game to kind of like validate or analyze how well that game is performing. So, you know, using platforms like universal ad campaigns or using Facebook ads, any system that enables you to acquire, I guess, like legitimate users. I tend not to use like third-party systems, and like social media, you know, like just takes so much work in terms of like cultivating audiences. But I think in terms of long-term viability, you know, you probably want to figure out a way to build your own audience so you can at least do testings. Sometimes, you know, same audiences give you same results. So then it's also not representative of what the true market really looks like. But for now, paid user acquisition is what we use to kind of like acquire users for our game. Not saying that we don't have organic traffic or organic installations, but obviously that's the primary. If you launch a game and you put it on the App Store and you don't do anything, you get 10 installs. Right? It's just
That's where I am right now.
It's guaranteed you get 10 installs. And like, you know, you wait a month and 2 months and you probably be nudging up to like 50. But you probably never, you know, but you can't hope that your game is going to be discovered just because of the volume of games that go onto the App Store every single day. And you can't hope that Google is going to like feature your game because, you know, like the requirements for that is quite, you know, like quite complex and complicated. And for the most part, you don't have any control over that. And it depends on what your objective is. If your objective for releasing that game is to kind of like understand user preferences and player behavior, then, you know, it's actually quite smart to kind of like do paid user acquisition to kind of like bump that number up to about like 1,000 or 5,000, in some cases 10,000 users, to be able to analyze how users are behaving within the game. And then if you have the right kind of like metrics, that's when you can then really start to, you know, like strategize on how you can like get the volumes of users up. But I typically wouldn't do more than 10,000 for just analyzing player behavior.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So you mentioned, you know, get the game into the players' hands as quickly as possible and get that feedback. Can you describe a bit your process of how you do that? What does that look like? What tools or platforms do you use? What is that? How do you evaluate? Just talk to us a bit about that.
Yeah. So we have a system called our rapid prototyping model, which gives 2 developers 4 weeks to build a game. And the reason why we built that system was because we want to really kind of like design a process where our teams could learn quickly by doing. So in that sense, we can design a very simple game with a very simple core loop. And by the end of a month, we would know if that game is playable enough, like if it's actually fun, if it has a fun user experience. And then we can decide if we want to publish that game and get it into the market. We do this simultaneously, so we have multiple rapid prototyping teams working on different types of games, or like different genres at the same time. So we can do like a runner, a platformer, you know, a match three games. By the end of the process, how well do they play? How enjoyable are they? what's the first time user experience like? Do we want to get this game in the hands of users? I mean, obviously, there has to be something unique about the gameplay experience. It's not just the standard thing that you see in the market. And then do we want to get this in the hands of the users to evaluate if it has retention? And then once we get to the point where we publish the game and we acquire some users in the game, we're mostly looking at day one retention of somewhere between 25 to 30%. If you imagine that you spent a month building a game, right, you're not going to have 50% retention for day one for a game that's built in a month. But if it's got 25% day one retention, then it's showing some good signs. And then we can then decide to kind of like add more content to the game, do some additional polishing in the game, and see if we can get that day one retention up to like 30%. And if that works, then we will continue to continue to iterate on that game, because obviously we're seeing that users are happy to play the game and come back the next day and play it. And then we start to look at day 7 retention and then everything after that.
And at that point, you're doing like a geo-locked, like you're doing it in New Zealand or Philippines or here?
Yeah.
Which market are you doing that test?
So we would typically do that for the African markets, mostly because of the low CPI for this region. I mean, like, we don't also have very sophisticated analytics, so technically we could also geolock, so do Africa, do maybe like a country in continental Europe, maybe do Australia or something like that, and then kind of like compare the day one retention for the different geos to see if this is not just exclusive to the African continent. Maybe, you know, I don't know, like Australia is like 35% and Africa is 23%. And then we could try and analyze the reason why, you know, users in certain geos are behaving differently.
Okay. Hello again. I have a question on, you do a lot of training inside and outside Malio. So I want your point of view and your feedbacks for the developers, because we already discussed a little bit about it, about the mindset training. Because at the end of the day, skills, technical skills are already somehow available on Unity tutorial, etc., depending on Epic tutorials, Unreal. The question is what is the place of the mindset training that you have to do with your African team when they face the extreme pressure of gaming industry with this constant excellence that gaming require, that you don't see on the passion side when you are like, oh, I want to make a game, but you don't see this kind of infinite hard work?
Yeah. No, very, very good question. And it's quite fascinating because, you know, like I think we've designed into the whole system this autonomy. We've designed autonomy into the system, right? So the developers think independently and try to, you know, like we push them to make decisions and take responsibility for making decisions really early. I also think that, you know, there's a lot of, I don't know how many people in the room have published a game on the App Store before, but it's a level of satisfaction that you get from completing that loop, right? Of, you know, like conceptualizing, you know, designing and developing and then publishing a game. That satisfaction in itself is internally rewarding for you, right? And that forms a mindset, right? Because like that experience, you want to go through it again. And because we have the short cycles, in theory, you know, like within a space of like, let's say 2 months, like assuming that you do the rapid prototyping for 4 weeks and then you do some additional polishing and do preparations for App Store listings and stuff like that, and you get the game published, that satisfactory feeling in itself just makes you want to go again. And then there's that kind of like process improvement when you realize that, you know, some of these things you've actually done this challenge and you executed on it, right? You're getting the feedback from the players as well, and seeing that people are also playing your game and giving positive reviews. So that's, and we create a safe space for people to learn, and we think of ourselves as a learning company. So like people understand that we've designed a process that accelerates their learning. And, you know, like the best example I usually give is a child riding a bicycle, right? And the first time you fall off, and the second time you fall off, and, you know, someone's holding the bike for you, and, you know, you're afraid, but eventually you stabilize, right? and then your confidence just goes, and then next thing you're doing loops and standing and like flipping and just discovering and exploring, right? The confidence is there, you know what you're doing, you don't need anybody to watch over you, and you just go, right? And then if you're doing it with your friends, right? Because all of you are learning how to ride at the same time, and then now you've caught up, now you want to go faster than everybody, and you're just going, and all of you are, because the design of those teams, right? They all come in at the same time, they all start the RPs at the same time, they all have the same probability of success or failure, right? The ones who fail are I don't want to be the last, right? I'm going to, they know they have another opportunity. They know that they're going to do the cycle again. And this time around they come and they want to be better.
Quickly, do you have an average retention time of the typical human resource at Malio? People work for you for, in medium, 5 years, 2 years. Do you have a retention thing you see a little bit coming from?
Yeah, no, good question. So we haven't had people around for that long. Our longest standing employee has been with us for 3 years.
Totally can relate.
Sorry?
I totally can relate.
Well, this is a new phase. This is a new phase for the company. So my expectation is that we do at the minimum 3-year retention. But part of my challenge as the studio lead is to continue, because once you achieve mastery, right, you're not going to ride a bicycle forever, right? Now you want to ride a motorbike, now you want to ride a car, now you want to ride, a Formula 1 car, Yeah, so my job is to make sure, that I can anticipate where you are, make sure you have the next big challenge. If I continue to provide those challenges and those tools, then the likelihood of me having long-term retention is there. And that is my job.
Okay, I'll be quick with my question. Hi, Hugo. So my question is this: it relates to what you said about marketing, right? So once the game is complete, now what? You got to get it out there to the people. In a few years, maybe a couple of years, you'll have quite a repertoire of games where, for other people, it'll take them a number of years to get to the number that you might have. Maybe this is a combined question also for Google. I mean, what are your plans when you get to that stage? I don't know, maybe you might not have, might not be there yet, you might have thought about it, but I'm just wondering what your business model might be. But also with, maybe if I take this question to Google, just like how you have Google channels, right, on YouTube, you can have your own channel. Is there something like that already exists within the gaming world for a creator like Hugo, who is pumping, who's set, to pump games out at a fast turnout, but because it already exists on your, on your app store to kind of collate all of that, and he's a brand. Does something like that already kind of exist, or what are there any plans to kind of moving in that direction in any way or form?
Yeah, so on my side, it's going to be quite valuable for us to. It's a problem that we need to solve. We're not solving it yet, but it's going to be valuable for us to build audiences and have a way to kind of easily identify our users, easily get content in front of our users. So whether that's using social media, using newsletters, using a platform, we have to identify, organize, and communicate with those users. Because you don't only just do that when the game is released, you do that through the game development, you do that in terms of communicating the individuals behind the games and, creating events. It's pretty much what, some of the bigger studios are doing today. Just driving engagement with your audiences, right? Being able to identify users in your games, what they like, and introduce them to other games that you've also produced. Because if they're playing one of your games, the likelihood of them playing or liking another one of your games is also very high. So, doing the kind of marketing within the games.
If I can add to that, when we think about gaming, I think it's the most performance category within the app business, right? So the marketers, they only think about ROI, lifetime value. I think they are the most sophisticated by far compared to other categories. Having said that, if you think about the biggest customers we work with, like King, Rovio, those guys have such a strong brand that they use the brand to, like they have their own YouTube channels, they do TV from time to time. Now we are having some new type of marketing opportunities that we call it brand formance, which is combining branding with performance. Some of the smaller companies we work with, they might have some Discord channels where they have like, I don't know, 30,000, 50,000 users there that they can target, either for do re-engagement with us or with any ad network, or just to share with the new launches. But the reality from my experience that when you launch a game at the beginning, performance is the most important, because brand is very expensive. It's not going to be any ROI positive even closely, and it's not going to give you any organic, right? So I think once you have this performance or business model in place, even if it's a funded or IAP, then you can think about, okay, I can do some branding and see how is this incrementality impacting my performance. But from my experience, at the level of most of the studios I've seen here, I think performance should be, in my opinion, 100% of the way to go.
I'm a big fan of Hugo Boss. Sorry, Hugo B. My question is, I'll look at the completely opposite spectrum, where we're looking at consumers. We're very active on media side, esports, and making sure that we start creating content. What would be your advice on how to make sure we are able to get a pipeline of people who start creating content? Do you think a model like Game App Africa is possible on that aspect? And what would you do what would be the approach when you look at it? On the media side and content creation, do you think a model like Game Up Africa is possible to create a pipeline of people who will create content for YouTube and who will become the people who will, in the end, play all of those games that will be created? And what will be the approach?
No, that's an interesting question, because this is also something that we are thinking about, not necessarily on the marketing side, but like on the art side, on the UI UX side, on the sort of like game design side, even with monetization and data analytics. The way that I think about it is the basic promise for Game Up Africa is that we would give you a skill that you didn't have before. We would include you within a community of like-minded folks who want to learn a similar type of skill. We would be able to provide you with employment opportunity that enables you to kind of like earn a living, right? And then obviously give you access to an industry that is quite desirable. So that's the promise that we make. And at every single stage, it's easy for people to evaluate, did I get a skill? Did I, join a community and stuff like that? And I think that as long as you can design a system where you can set expectations and you can deliver on those expectations, and those expectations are aligned with people's objectives and goals, in principle, it's doable. It's just a matter of how you design and align those expectations. Yeah.
Great. So thank you so much, Hugo, for being so open and answering all the questions. Let's give him a round of applause, please. Great. And we have the closing keynote from Francisca. It's going to be like a 2-3 minutes just for key takeaways and learnings from the session. Thank you, Hugo. And what?
Closing keynote is a little bit too big, so I'm just going to say like a few things, and then it's not going to be a keynote. You'll be out here in like 3 minutes. But basically, I've been here already since Wednesday, and I think I haven't been so excited about gaming in a long time, because I really have to say that there's so many great people here. We already had so many great conversations, and I do think that not only we can maybe share some of what Google is doing, but vice versa, we can learn a lot here on how I don't know, engaged and excited and people are just so into games here. So I have been already pumped up. I'm going on vacation, but I'm feeling oh, I don't even want to go on vacation now after this week, because I feel like there's so much to do. But to close up today, one a little bit maybe negative start to this. Especially in Europe, right? We are facing a difficult time right now. The macroeconomic situation isn't the best. But what we really want to say and what we really want to close out here is just to say, Google and all the teams that you saw today, they are really like having apps and gaming as a top priority also going into 2023, and we really, really, really want to work with all of you guys, and we want to make the space bigger, and we want to make Africa bigger. Hopefully, I'm always saying like we really have to take care of the A in EMEA. So just wanted to say that even though it's like maybe not the easiest time to start a business, to thrive or to grow, we're more than happy to help. We are really investing and doubling down in all areas. You heard a lot of teams today, right? You heard from YouTube, you heard from the ad monetization side, you heard from the Google Ads side. Firebase was here. There is even more Google Play is there. The cloud business is growing. So really, really across multiple product areas we're investing, and we want to thrive with you, because that's probably the most important message. Your success is our success, so we can only be successful if many, many gaming companies are successful. So I guess what we really wanted to say and make sure that comes across is, again, once more, you've heard this, you've seen the slide in the beginning. Google has a lot of solutions, from like really pre-launch to post-launch, from like really small businesses to big businesses. And make use, we are all here tomorrow as well. Like Elif is there, Cherise, there's so many Googlers, I don't even want to call them all out, but like grab them, talk to them, ask them questions. We're here now, and more than happy to really have conversations, answer many possible open questions, or also think just about solutions that we're maybe not even having right now. And yeah, that's it already from us. I think, yeah, let's chat, connect, network, make sure that you're not shying away from talking to us. And thank you so much for your time today, really. Been great. We're already like, I don't know, if anyone else wants to say something, I don't even want to like close this out, but thanks also like Javi and Elif for organizing. And it's great to see that so many Googlers came down, I think, here. It's a great adventure for us as well to be here, and we're really looking forward to 2023. All right, thanks.